What is up, YouTube? Today is going to be the first of 3 videos where I'm going to be looking at the top 8 decks from this past weekend's regionals, and I kind of wanted to do justice by each region and kind of highlight them individually and not just speed through them, because after LAIC, where we saw Lugia dominate with 48% of the day 2 meta, 6 out of the 8 decks in top 8, and, you know, the finals was just a Lugia mirror, everyone thought the format was doomed. It was doom and gloom. We thought, you know, it's going to be 3 months of Lugia until rotation, 3 months of Lugia until Scarlet Violet, and then we're going to have to live with that, like an ADP format or like something worse. I don't even know what could be worse, but that didn't happen. In all 3 regions, in the top 4 decks of each region, there was only 1 Lugia deck represented out of the 12 decks in top 8s. So, which is crazy to me because players came around that very turnaround very quickly. And we're going to look at each individual region. Brisbane's first, Stuttgart second, and we're going to look at Toronto third. The top 8 more or less, but top 16 as a whole, we can see here 182 players in Brisbane. And the winner was Tim Franklin playing an Inteleon Frostmoth deck, a very cool deck, with a finalist Joel being Flaffy Box, which is also cool. Third place being Durant, so like all of you guys out there who love your fringe decks, it can work. Any deck can work if you are comfortable with the deck and you know what you're doing. That's what I've always told people. I think you can. And Lewis Stevens in 4th with Evital Control. Now the rest of the top 8 was ran out with Brent playing Lugia, Sean playing Lugia, Akira playing Mew, and Aaron playing Lugia Archeops as well. Or not Lugia Archeops, Evital Control. That's my bad. I don't know why they did that. And then we had a Reggie's in top 16 as well, as an important note. 3 controls that made it deep. As well as 1 Lost Box and a couple of Mews. I think Mew always has a place. So let's look at some of these lists and see what people did. Now, Tim's list was super cool. It's got the whole Frostmoth engine, the Inteleon engine, to power up your Articunos whenever. You're attacking with Inteleon a lot. That's your main attacker. You can power up the Ice Cube in 1 turn to deal with Lost Box, Regigigas, all those kinds of weird decks. There is a Drapion to deal with for Mew, because I think you need that for the Mew matchup with a single prize deck like this. And then between your quick shootings and wild freezes, you should be able to take out the rest somewhere. There's an Olin Vulpix V-Star, which I'm going to reread to you guys, in case you don't know what it does. For a water and 2 colorless, Snow Mirage 160, and your attack's damage is not affected by any effects on your opponent's active. And then during your next turn, prevent all damage done to this Pokemon by Pokemon that have abilities, which can be gusted around. But this deck, most notably, only plays really 1 V-Star Pokemon, so decks that are heavily playing Serena cannot get around this Vulpix. And now this Vulpix also has a cool V-Star attack. For 0, it does 70x each of your opponent's V in play. So a Lugia that haphazardly benches all of a sudden could get popped. A Mew that haphazardly benches could get all of a sudden popped. Probably other matchups too, but you can just also lost Mirage, or Snow Mirage, sorry, for a little bit until you're ready to play the game. There's 2 copies of Nessa to recycle the Frostmoth engine as well as Waters, so it's not using as much of a heavy Raihan engine as we saw with Jake Gearhart's list, but playing the heavy Iridas, the heavy boss, trying to just be able to boss after you get the Frostmoth and the lock established to boss around with the Articuno, going ahead and using that Inteleon quick shooting to make the damage numbers perfect. Concealed cards here with Greninja to improve consistency, as opposed to the other list we've seen with the Radiant Serena to infinitely loop, or the Alakazam to do perfect numbers. We see 1 copy of VIP Pass to kind of just give the Iridas some oomph. 2 copies of Emergency Jelly, a really cool card in case you guys didn't know what Emergency Jelly does. At the end of your turn, if this Pokemon that it is attached to has 30 HP or less, then you heal 120, and that basically just sets up Articuno to go 2 hits, completely heal itself, 3rd hit, keep the lock going basically, because Articuno is very fragile, so a very cool card. Congratulations to Tim for winning this event. Second was Joel, I don't know how to say that, but they were playing Flaffy Box, another really cool deck, in my opinion. Flaffy Box is something that, you know, Dynamotor has been very prevalent in Pokemon's history, always has been very good, but for some reason in this format, I guess probably due to Lost Box, was not really as good, and the lightning attackers are all a little bit weak, but the single prize box ends up working here, where Joel focuses on using Zekrom and Medicham as a combination play. So you can go into the Wild Shock, you can Yoga Loop with the Medicham, and then go into any of your other attackers you'd like. You've got a Raikou, you get the Snorlax, which does a lot of damage with the Thumping Snore, making Control a very good matchup as well, because they can't go through the Unfazed Fat. Regieleki with the Terra Spark attack, doing a ton of damage to the bench as well. No choice belts in this list most notably, so against decks like where you need that extra damage like Lost Box, that's where the Regieleki comes into play. Zekrom is very, very good for the loop. I think this weekend a lot of players were not prepared for paralysis, and it was very evident with the decks that did well. So moving forward, we're going to see how that changes, but looks like a very consistent list and a very cool deck from Joel. In 3rd place, we had Anthony Fernie playing Durant, a fan favorite for people back home. I know a lot of people like to do the Devour attack to discard the 4 from the top of the deck, but let's see what Anthony did differently that helped out. He played 4 copies of Peony to just pitch the hand and get that consistency rolling, find those VIP passes early, find those gears early, fully lean into the Radiant Venusaur to fill their hand up over and over again, go into the Durant and mill as much as possible. Only 4 copies of Rescue Carrier, but also a copy of Clara to bring cards back. You have the Cry of Destruction Evital for an early game insurance policy to just kind of make sure you can play the game and get rid of some special energies that could be bothersome, cumbersome, whatever. Because like decks like Lugia can just overpower you with just a bunch of energies. So if you can pivot into the Evital and just get rid of their energies, they have to think twice about how they play the game. So it's your backup strategy in those matchups, acting as a pseudo control. You have the Weather Reading Cast Form, which is like not important at all. It's just got free retreat. I guess you can attack with Weather Force at some point. I don't think that ever came into play. I'm hoping it didn't for Anthony. We'd be cool with it. But yeah, just a vanilla card here, and a Pyukumuku to kind of add to that control aspect to just keep drawing cards, consistency, feed into the Radiant Venusaur a little bit more. 4 copies of Yellhorn, which is pretty insane, so you can paralyze like Mew decks, or like you can mess up Mew decks and stuff who don't want to use more than 1 energy and kind of consistently do that stuff. A Sydney for disruption as opposed to something like a Flannery, because you can just use Evital for stuff like that. 4 copies of Bruno, no copies of Research, so we're not going to be discarding cards at all in this deck besides Quick Ball, so our resources will always be there with us unless we're Brunoing, we're gearing, we're just going through our deck, we're getting to the Venusaur cards, keeping our hand full. Rose Towering to draw more cards. Peony will be the only other way to discard cards. So we can peony away bad cards, find those exact items we need, go into a gear, go into a Yellhorn, find our nets to keep the attacks going, Rescue Carrier every turn. The only cards we can't really find reliably are the energy cards, and so maybe a Lotto or something would have been cool, but congrats to Anthony on a 3rd place finish. This deck is absolutely bonkers. And then we've got ourselves Lewis Stevens playing at Yveltal control, which looks almost identical to what Sander ended up playing at LAIC, which I thought a lot of people would do. This list is not very difficult to pilot because it uses the Yveltal Cry of Destruction very effectively. So I expect the players to just pick this list up and bring it, because it does win games against players who don't know what they're doing or don't have the answers in their deck reliably, and it does beat Lugia if they're not playing the SV on VMAX like my group did. So congrats to Lewis. I don't want to talk too much about control because control is control. Then we had Brent Tonneson making it to top 8 with Lugia, a consistent performer in the Australia region, OCIC, whatever. Oh, Oceania region, sorry. Brent playing a very stock standard version of Lugia. I think Brent was one of the players who didn't have much time in between tournaments to kind of evaluate what to change about the list, what to fix about the list. Brent playing 2 copies of Vacuum and 2 copies of Collapsed to kind of ensure that they can get rid of stadiums that are, bothersome, Path to the Peak, Temple of Sinnoh, etc. No external attackers like a Stoutland for the Lost Box matchup. Just the Zard, just the Evital. 4-3 Lugia, very consistent. Playing the Oranguru, Illuminate, and Crobat, a good package of 3 support Pokemon. 4 Research as opposed to like a 3 Research, 3 Serena split, something like that. Just straight consistency. Playing the V-Guard as well and the Hiding Dark as their energy of choice, their additional energy of choice. A very cool list from Brent, stock standard Lugia, but Lugias are going to have to change and get greedier as well to deal with the metagame. And finally, I wanted to talk about, this isn't a top 8 deck, but Jesse Owers ended up playing Regigigas, which is a deck that a lot of players have written off in recent history. So I wanted to talk about what Regigigas looks like in this new format and why it could still be playable. It's got the 4-path 4 money build here with all the Regis that you're used to, the 3 you have to play because of Mew Lost City. 3 copies of Shoes, so a little bit of a go engine. We see the 2 Twins, the 2 Speeds, the 2 Captures, 2 Gifts. A little bit lower on the energy count, actually, than I thought would be here. But I guess the whole plan is to just go as deep through your deck as quickly as possible. Get a Marnie Path to stick. Find the pieces you need. Only 3 Orod, also a little bit scary for me. The Elhorn for the lone Ice Q. And, well, I don't know. This deck is cool. I don't know if it can still stand up to the entire metagame. 4 copies of Research. But Regigigas is still alive and kicking, so don't forget about that, guys. So if you guys are enjoying the content, please like and subscribe. I would appreciate that a ton. Tomorrow, we're going to be looking at the Stuttgart Regional Championships over in Germany. Some wild stuff happened there as well, but today was just Brisbane. I hope you guys enjoyed. Tomorrow we'll do Stuttgart, and the next day after we'll do Toronto, and at some point in between we'll have a vlog. So thank you guys for watching. As always, peace out.